Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Time to do this all over again. Not that I'm, aware of that or ready for it or anything like that. Running a little bit behind today. Weird, wild stuff is happening today. And, yes, I had meant to work on adjusting the volume this morning. And I think I just have things turned up too high. I guess I've been listening to some of the recordings afterwards in a couple of days that I spent editing it, and I did wonder whether the sound levels were always this high, and I wondered whether you wondered as well. And the upstairs editing suite sent down a note in person, actually came and said, is the volume up? Have you turned the volume up in the last couple of days? And I don't think it's been the last couple of days. I think it's been, who knows, probably since we've been back from the trip. And everything got jostled around and readjusted and assembled and disassembled every night. And there's no telling what kind of settings things were on when I was doing it, nor now that I'm done with the trip anyway. So whatever, we'll be working on it and see if we can't put things right. But if you also have noticed high volume levels, I don't know, turn your volume down. Why do I have to do all this stuff? All right, I'm working on it. See if we can't get it right. I think I adjusted them at some point prior to the trip, and I tried to keep things set. I even took some screenshots of where I had the settings, but I don't know. It just depends, and I'm sure things got turned up and down inadvertently in all of the transit. Oh, yeah, speaking of the trip, I was thinking of this yesterday, and I didn't, for some reason, remember to do it, but I wanted to say that yesterday, attention to Bill Barr and to Eric and Brian, who I didn't get the chance to meet when I was out in Venice. The Feelin' Swell t-shirt that I've got has quickly risen to the top of the rotation. Really easily one of the most comfortable things. I got to tell you, I sort of picked it at random. I don't know if they're all like this, but Eric, Brian, wherever you're sourcing these shirts, they're fantastic. This is a super comfortable thing. It's heavy duty cotton of some kind. It's 100% cotton, but it's got this neckline, which I don't know. There's no indication on here what the sourcing of it is. I guess the tags are out of here because they're branded inside. You want the branded tagging instead, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it because you've sourced some amazingly comfortable t-shirts. And if you are in the Southern California area and find yourself in Venice or put yourself in Venice, Feelin' Swell is the place to get it. And you should look it up. I don't think I remember the address offhand anymore. But so I'll make a note to myself to do that, or maybe I ought to take care of it right now. But anyway, thank you for directing me there, Bill. And thank you, Eric, for the t-shirt, the hat going over big with production staff as well. But, genuinely feels good to put this shirt on, and I miss it when it's in the wash. So, thank you very much. Thanks once again for treating us to it. And, oh, by the way, I just signed on to their feelingswell.org, by the way, not .com. And I find that there's a 15% off your order if you're a new purchaser or if you just show up. I don't know how often they show you this thing. Anyway, I highly recommend it. And honestly, it's, I don't know what it is about it, but I guess they must have tried on a bunch of shirts and they actually took a moment to find ones that are good. Or probably took a moment. Probably took them a year to get all the right stuff in there. They got hoodies. They got, hats. They got the t-shirts. They've got, there's a picture of Eric, and I get to see Brian as well because he's in the photo. And, in fact, right on the front page, the actual t-shirt that I chose is all the way, I don't know if it's going to regenerate differently every time, but all the way over on the right-hand side of the 4 items on the front page is the swirl tee. So I appreciate seeing that. And if you all want the same one, I don't know why you would want the same one, but if you do, That's the one. But any number of styles and cool stuff, and try them all on. Well, let's see. Tees, hats, sweatshirts, the basic lineup of the apparel. Okay. Oh, and where's the address? It's got to be on the page here somewhere, right? Even though it is weird, sometimes on the internet they don't tell you stuff like that, because there you are on the internet. What more do you want to know? Let's see. FAQ? I don't know. Where would you find this? Maybe right there. That's interesting. I don't know. All right. Well, you know where I can go is Google Maps. I don't know. I'm on this now, and I might as well stick to it, because I got to tell you, the news isn't great. So anyway, let's see. I'm doing here. Feelings. Well, there we are. Main Street. There we are. Okay. And it lists as Main Street in Venice, Los Angeles, California. 222 Main Street, Venice, California. 90291, not 90210, as the rest of me wanted to say. But that's Beverly Hills. But 222 Main Street in Venice. I can't recommend it highly enough. Certainly friendly and fun. Can't beat that. And top-notch apparel. Really, I just wanted to say, wherever you're sourcing it from, keep sourcing it from there. And thank you for doing all the work to have come up with something that was so awesome. Anyway, I don't know. It's a see if I can work it in twice a week into my T-shirt rotation. Now, I have some other news for you. You may have guessed that I had my eye on a few other things as well. And where to start? Well, you pick it. Aha, I don't know. There is news. It's really interesting. News that no one believes. Which, while we all have a healthy skepticism of everything that's going on, I don't know whether this represents any kind of a turning point or anything, but it's interesting. The news is, as the New York Times puts it in their headline, Trump backs off plan for $1.8 billion fund that drew political backlash. And I've seen a variant of this headline everywhere, that he's backing off, that he's turning away from it. There was so much negative reaction from it, even among Republicans on Capitol Hill, that I guess they feel comfortable going with that headline. But what's really been interesting is it's not just me reading the headline, or a couple of us reading the headline and saying, do we really think he's backing off, or is he fooling people with this? And it turns out that all over Capitol Hill, among Republicans and Democrats alike, they don't believe that he's actually saying, yeah, forget it. You convinced me. All right, Rabbit. You've convinced me. I'm not going to have this fund. Both Republicans and Democrats alike, and news readers and news organizations are reporting on this, I guess, kind of correctly, even if the headlines don't actually state it, that people assume that he's either lying about it, or he has some sly idea about how he's going to get out of his reversal at some point. I don't know if there's a real hint of this in the New York Times piece, but like I said, I've seen it all over Blue Sky that, let's see, I think Senator Cassidy, now that he's, good and pissed off and is a freelancer, saying, I heard that news, I heard that announcement, but I'm going forward with legislation to prevent it from happening anyway, because you never know. And this morning, people pointing to the New York Times piece and saying, if you read the reporting, you read the whole article, and I guess we should, you kind of get the idea that it's not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that he's actually backing off. The fund, it says in the subheader, has drawn backlash from critics who said it was a scheme to reward President Trump's political allies with public benefits. And they said that because it was. And I think everybody knows that. So here's your next indication that this is going to be complex and maybe almost intentionally dumb about some important aspect of what's going on here is, well, 1, New York Times, 2, the headline, 3, 5 photos here with byline. Tyler Pager, Maggie Haberman, everyone look out, Alan Feuer, Devlin Barrett, and Annie Carney. They're trying to figure it out, but there are some people in there that are inclined to Well, I don't know. Maybe they're just racked by self-doubt. Who knows? Anyway, President Trump is backing off his plan to establish a $1.8 billion fund to compensate people who claimed they were victims of unfair prosecution by the government. Two people familiar with the matter said on Monday. And I can tell you this, there's a way to find your way to partial truth there, right in that first sentence / paragraph, and find differences with it. Trump is backing off his plan to establish a fund to compensate people who claim they were victims of unfair prosecution by the government. That may be true. Partially true. We'll give it a Snopes or what is it? The Pinocchios. Anyway, the fact checker, partly true. Trump didn't have a plan to establish a fund to compensate people who claim they were victims of unfair prosecution by the government. He had a plan to compensate people who claimed they were victims of Joe Biden's government, of Democrats running the government. There's no fund for people who claim they were treated unfairly by the Trump Republican government. You're not in it. And I know everybody kept saying, haha, wouldn't it be funny? Or I'm deadly serious, I'm going to apply, but you know very well that that's not part of the plan, and it doesn't have to be part of the plan. And the whole plan was to do it lopsided and unfair and arbitrarily, but to write the rules such that it's, hey, what can I do? It's a legal settlement. You said we could populate the board that makes these decisions with anyone we wanted to, and we did, and that they're immediately fireable by the president if he doesn't like what they decide, and that's what we were going to do, although they didn't do it. I said that they said we can populate it with anyone we want, and we did it. They didn't do it. They didn't name anybody. Nothing happened. Now, continuing with the article, the people who spoke on condition of anonymity to describe the president's thinking, and you should always ask for anonymity if you're trying to describe the president's thinking, because that's just silly. Well, they said he had been leaning for days towards scrapping the fund. Yeah, he was never really into it, you see, which critics have characterized as a scheme to reward Mr. Trump's political allies with public benefits. And also, people who are correct were saying that as well. So both critics and correct people, I think, had it right. The administration signaled a retreat on Monday when the Justice Department said in a statement that it would abide, gee whiz, by a federal judge's temporary order not to proceed with any steps to activate the fund until at least June 12th, when a hearing on the fund is scheduled. The department said the administration disagreed with the decision, but did not make clear whether it intended to fight the issue further in court. So, just to be clear, what we've got here is a federal court saying you must not go forward with organizing this fund, at least until June 12th. And the Department of Justice, in a huge concession, a huge reversal, said, federal judge, huh? All right. We'll wait until June 12th. Now, again, it is true. They gave no indication that they were going to fight on with any sort of an appeal in court. And that might be interesting, too. I mean, remember that this was supposed to be something of an out-of-court settlement. We're not going to fight on this in court. We're going to fight on this out of court. We don't know. We just don't know whether that's what he's saying. But it is interesting that many, many, many more people than usual are attuned to that and saying, I think this is some sort of a dodge. And at best, all it is saying, well, we'll abide, gee whiz, thanks very much, Department of Justice. You're going to abide by a federal judge's decision. And it's only 2 weeks. And you know how Trump feels about 2 weeks. All right, there is more. It was unclear whether getting rid of the fund would affect another part of the legal settlement in the case, which provides Mr. Trump and his family and his businesses with significant immunity from audits, which is absurd all by itself. But yeah, good question. Does that affect that part of the so-called settlement, which there isn't one? Still, some administration officials privately expressed relief that the judge's ruling showed a way out of what most had seen as a mess of the Trump team's own making. But as with all things involving Mr. Trump, he could still decide to reverse course, especially as he tracks media coverage of his decision. I think that's probably the most accurate thing that they've said, and probably the best indication that they kind of sort of at least do know what they're dealing with here. The decision by Mr. Trump to back down, at least for now, came after rare pushback from members of his own party who normally fall in line behind him. Still, Republicans on Monday cast serious doubt on whether the president would ultimately be willing to kill off the fund, which likely would have distributed huge sums, he doesn't say that anymore, huge sums to Mr. Trump's allies, suggesting they needed firmer assurances that he would follow through. And I mean, that really is kind of astonishing. The Justice Department statement might not be, quote, sufficient to satisfy a number of, unquote, a little awkward, GOP senators, said Senator John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, and the majority leader, who said his party was still, quote, sorting through a way to move forward. On what? I don't know, actually. Why you're not sorting through a way to move forward with the fund, right? I think he may also have been talking about, probably it was about the fact that Trump wanted to include the fund or authorization for the fund or who knows what, some sort of rubber stamp in the reconciliation bill he still wants to push through. And maybe Thune is talking about still looking to find a way forward on the reconciliation bill and the other issues that are supposed to, that we want to put in there. I was going to say that are supposed to be in there. None of them are supposed to be in there by the rules. All right, there's going to be a little tea sipping going on today, but hopefully you won't let that get in your way. Okay, so Thune said they're still looking for a way they're still sorting through a way to move forward. Asked whether he worried that Mr. Trump might veto a bill to rein in the fund, he responded, "Oh yeah, don't you? That's something." The White House referred to the Justice Department's statement that it would abide by the temporary order. They didn't put out their own statement. The fund emerged as part of a deal between the Justice Department the Justice Department brokered over Mr. Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS, blaming it for the leak of his tax returns during his first term as president. The Biden administration then prosecuted the man responsible, and Mr. Trump filed the lawsuit in January. So, I mean, did everybody hear that part? The Biden administration prosecuted the guy responsible. What else do you want to know? Beyond the legal challenges, Mr. Trump has also faced increasing pressure from both parties on Capitol Hill to torpedo the fund. It was so appalling to Senate Republicans that last month they abruptly abandoned their plans to take up a filibuster-proof bill, reconciliation, to fund the president's immigration crackdown rather than advance Mr. Trump's personal agenda and take what would have been a politically toxic vote. Last month, Todd Blanche, you know who he is, he's the acting Attorney General, appeared on Capitol Hill to meet with Senate Republicans and explain the fund in a 2-hour closed-door meeting that turned highly contentious. Senators vented that he had provided them with no explanations of how the fund would function or whether there would be any guardrails around the money. Well, he didn't provide them with it. You were supposed to infer that the fund would function as a personal slush fund of the president and there would be no guardrails around the money. But he didn't want to, say that. But that was what you were meant to infer it. We did. We read what substance there was to the agreement. And remember, that was supposed to serve as a legal document. The impasse was part of a broader split between Mr. Trump and Senate Republicans who for most of the year, have stood by him and his agenda, even as he has intervened in GOP primaries in ways that could threaten Republican control of Congress in November, and in fact has bounced certain members of that conference out of office. The fund suffered a major legal setback on Friday when, in a surprise move, Judge Kathleen M. Williams, who oversaw Mr. Trump's lawsuit against the IRS, suddenly reopened the case, saying that she wanted to investigate grievous allegations, that's a quote, that the hasty deal to resolve it had been, quote, premised on deception. Well, that seems true. I think they got that part right. Judge Williams had always had qualms about the lawsuit, given that Mr. Trump was suing a federal agency that he controlled, and so was effectively on both sides of the case. And her reason for revisiting the suit was to investigate whether the president had essentially colluded with his own government. Yeah, I didn't collude with the Russians, but I did collude with myself. Colluded with his own government to settle the case, quote, to avoid judicial scrutiny. Well, how do you like that? Now that you want to avoid it, we're going to give you some. The deal establishing the compensation fund had been negotiated by senior Justice Department officials, chief among them Trent McCotter, Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. Trent McCotter. I guess you should remember that. And a small group of lawyers representing Mr. Trump, including Boris Epshteyn, his top outside legal advisor. I guess when you see outrageous corruption, you should always think Boris Epshteyn may be nearby. The talks took place under significant pressure from a federal judge who had given the Justice Department until May 20th. This is how the whole settlement came about, really. The talks, right, significant pressure, federal judge gives them until May 20th to tell her, and this is, I guess, the very same judge who's reopened the case, you got to tell me by May 20th whether and how it planned to muster an independent defense of the IRS against the man who ultimately controlled the agency. That deadline, just, so that you could establish that there was a genuine case or controversy, which would give the federal courts jurisdiction in the first place. That deadline set off a scramble as Mr. Trump's lawyers and the Justice Department looked for a way to settle the suit and avoid further scrutiny from the judge because they wouldn't be able to satisfy her with the briefings. It put the Justice Department in an especially tight spot. Department leaders did not want to go into court and fight the suit, as they normally would, but they also did not want to settle it by paying Mr. Trump directly, concerned that such a move would be politically damaging. In the end, they came up with a Plan B, establishing the so-called anti-weaponization fund to make payments to Trump allies and supporters who claimed they had been wronged in the courts by the Biden administration. It would draw from the Judgment Fund, an unlimited source of money. Can you believe that we have such a thing? Where? An unlimited source of money that Congress authorized the Justice Department to use to settle lawsuits filed against the federal government. If Mr. Trump does fully abandon his fund, there are still other possible avenues for his allies to seek restitution from the government for what they claim is weaponization. They could file individual lawsuits. They always could. Or administrative claims asking for money, which the government could simply agree to settle one by one. And I assume that they might be so inclined. Although, not without Trump's involvement somewhere. He would probably insist on signing the checks or presenting them personally. There would have to be some way to involve the Donald Trump name in paying these people off. In March, for example, the Justice Department agreed to pay $1.25 million to Michael T. Flynn. The T stands for the Notorious International Super Spy. That is, of course, Trump's former national security advisor, to settle the claims that he was wrongfully prosecuted for making false statements to federal agents investigating ties between Russia and Mr. Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. He pleaded guilty to lying in the case, but was pardoned by Mr. Trump near the end of his first term. So that's how wrong the prosecution was. He pleaded guilty to it. Several January 6th rioters, including members of the far-right group, the Proud Boys, prosecuted on charges of seditious conspiracy, have also sued the department for claims of prosecutorial misconduct. Even if Mr. Trump moves forward with abandoning the fund, Democrats on Capitol Hill are signaling they still plan to corner Republicans into taking votes related to the fund. On Monday, Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York and minority leader, kicked off the week noting that Senate Democrats were launching a coordinated effort to kill the slush fund. If Republicans return to reconciliation, we will be ready with amendments to shut the fund down. Shut the fund down, I say. Mr. Schumer wrote in a letter to Senate Democrats. That's a good idea. If they try to bury the issue, we will force them to the Senate floor. If they try to sneak behind appropriations, we will fight them there too. And 3 Democratic senators, Adam B. Schiff of California, Mark Kelly of Arizona, and Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, introduced legislation to shut down the fund as well as any other attempt that they viewed as an abuse of the Judgment Fund. Republicans said they were looking for a concrete commitment from Mr. Trump to eliminate the fund. Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana, told reporters on Monday, maybe I confused him with Cassidy, told reporters on Monday that the Trump administration should clearly state that it was giving up on the $1.8 billion fund if it has changed its position. Saying you're going to follow a court order doesn't tell me anything, he told reporters. You have to follow the court order. All right. So Kennedy's got it largely right. Oh, shucks. He got that one right. Well, all right. I just wanted to let you know that that was happening and that people weren't believing it. And I think the most widely held view of the news was that this somehow meant something other than that Trump was in fact reversing and giving up on the plan. He's looking for another way forward on the plan, and I think everybody knows it. All right. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see. Look at this. I have a heads up from Justice, and what a heads up it is. You're not going to believe this one. Somebody's heads are up somewhere else, and I think we know where it is. I'll give you the rest of the story after the break. Trump appoints ally and FHFA chief Pulte. Bill Pulte, remember he flubbed all of the attempts to launch mortgage fraud investigations against a short list of certain of Trump's political enemies, and every single one of them fell apart. Well, the reward is in. He is going to be acting U.S. Intelligence Director. Tulsi Gabbard, as we know, I think we got it read into the record last week, but we didn't read too much about it. But Tulsi Gabbard out as Director of National Intelligence. So a new acting DNI is in, and it's Bill Pulte. And we're not getting any more intelligence from him than we were ever getting from Tulsi Gabbard. I think you can be sure.
Hi, Kagro in the Morning listeners. This is Rebecca Romans, longtime listener and longtime supporter of the show. Do you love your non-corporatized, completely independent, commercial-free Kagro in the Morning show? Do you stand out among the crowd at the office water cooler when discussing current events because of all the up-to-the-minute news you've been brought by David Waldman? Then it's time to give back a little. David relies on contributions from listeners like you and me to keep this show on the air. Patreon.com is among the easiest ways to make secure recurring monthly donations to support the show. Patreon.com/KagroX will bring you straight to his donation page, where you can sign up for any convenient tier you like. A mere $5 a month. You'll never miss it. Works out to about 25 cents a show. That means that David is making 12.5 cents an hour, which, by coincidence, is exactly what the GOP wants to lower the federal minimum wage to. Once again, David is ahead of the curve. If Patreon.com doesn't sound like your kind of thing, there's always PayPal, or even the Square Cash app. Any way you choose to donate, please choose to donate. And thank you on behalf of David and the rest of us listeners. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. As I said just before taking the break, I got this news from Justice. He points to streetinsider.com, and I guess we're talking Wall Street, not just Main Street or some other random street, or 222 Main Street, Venice, California, where you can find the fabulous T-shirts. Feeling swell. That's not the street we're talking about, though. But the headline is, I guess, it's a Reuters alert. There's like no news to it other than, hey, we just heard that this happened. And the other outlets are in all the same position. Trump appoints ally and FHFA chief Pulte as acting U.S. Intelligence Director. Acting. Everyone loves saying acting. U.S. They're telling us, by the way, what country is Donald Trump the president of? It's the U.S. So we begin. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday, and Duffman says a lot of things, so beware, but he said on Tuesday that he was appointing Federal Housing Finance Agency Chief Bill Pulte as acting director of national intelligence. And then I guess a quote in the press release. During this period, he will remain director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency and chairman of Fannie Mae / Freddie Mac, he said in a Truth Social post. Oh, okay. Yes, right. I forgot. The bespoke and otherwise desolate social media platform built especially for the president to rant and rave uncontrolled at night. So, all right. CNN has slightly more verbiage anyway. This one attributed to Aileen Graff, Graef, by the way. Trump names controversial top housing official to be acting director of national intelligence. And I just wanted to press the acting button one more time. Blah, blah, blah. He named housing official Bill Pulte, and that's an interesting lateral move, don't you think? In charge of federal housing finance / the entire intelligence community. Clearly a sign that Trump has lost no confidence in Pulte, despite the fact that he hasn't been able to deliver on anything. I guess he's just rewarding the loyalty, but it doesn't make any sense. And there are, there's a million people circulating in the intelligence community who his aides could help him understand are equally loyal. But as he ages and sundowns generally, his circle is contracting because he doesn't remember the name or ever perhaps knew the names of anybody else, essentially. And he's just reaching for names that he can think of. Anyway, I am appointing the Director of Federal Housing Finance Agency and Chairman of Fannie Mae Freddie Mac, William J. Pulte, to serve as Acting Director of National Intelligence. William has deep experience managing the most sensitive matters in America. That makes it sound like he might be qualified for Director of National Intelligence, right? But what are the most sensitive matters in America? The safety and soundness of the markets, of course, and over $10 trillion at Fannie Mae / Freddie Mac, a substantial increase from where it was 12 months ago, Trump said in a post on Truth Social. Increase in what? I don't even know what he's talking about, and I don't know whether the $10 trillion figure is correct, and someone should check that. I don't know that it's increased at all over, or what are we even saying? Is that the portfolio of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac? Anyway, I doubt every aspect of this, up to and including the purported fact that he's nominating Pulte. He's posted on Truth Social that he's nominating Pulte, but of course that counts for nothing. And Trump and paperwork, man. I don't know that I would say it's a good bet that nominating paperwork has actually been sent anywhere he's not being nominated for the position permanently so far as we know, but if he is, that would require some paperwork be sent to the Senate. I don't know if anybody who's supposed to get paperwork has gotten it. And he's only going to the office of the Director of National Intelligence, right? There's no keys or passes or anything that you would need to get into that building. You just walk right in, I guess. Anyway, what can I tell you? I don't know how he can do both jobs at once, seeing as how he was unable to do the one job he had first. But, uppermost in Trump's mind is, will you help me try to prosecute my enemies? And Pulte has been there, although it does fall afoul of the what have you done for me lately rule. But again, as I said, Trump has increasing difficulty, I think, remembering who is in his circle. Smaller and smaller circle of people are being remembered from day to day. So I'm surprised it wasn't Marco Rubio, I guess. Anyway, that's interesting news. I guess that's the best thing we can say about that. Let me maybe see if I can rig this thing up, because this is a bit of a weird one too, and it's going to require moving a couple of things to the big computer where I can play them for you. Let's see. So on the war front, which is not a war, I call it an excursion. Remember that. Trump's latest commentary on all of this is, he finds it boring, apparently. That's the news that he wants you to hear for some strange reason about how he feels about what's going on. He's not in any rush to settle, but it's almost happening any second now. And yes, we're also, bombing one another, but you know how it is with ceasefires. Like, what are you talking about? So, did I put away I don't know if I did put away the part about, or the post about, I think I tried to do it and it didn't go right. Let me look again and see if I can find the audio of Trump telling everybody that he's bored by the whole thing, which is kind of amazing. I really don't know what I'm for lack of a better word, I don't know what his thinking is over the last couple of days on Iran, and we've never known. Let's see if we can find the Trump board bit here. Is there audio with this one or not? I don't think so. But anyway, the latest here. So this is an interview. Let's see. I'm looking at CNBC. Where was the interview? It is, CNBC's own Eamon Javers. Does he say Javers? Trump tells CNBC, I don't care, quote, I don't care if Iran negotiations are over. Well, that's, not what you want to hear from an engaged party. But the deal is, he goes on to say that he's also bored. I don't care. I really don't care. I couldn't care less, Trump told CNBC's Eamon Javers in a phone interview midday Monday. He also didn't care to show up in person. He did a phone interview saying that he thought the protracted discussions, quote, started to get very boring. And I assume that he meant, well, they're boring because we're making no progress in them, is how he would try to explain himself. But you don't want to use that kind of language. And so, anyway, no news there except for the fact that, once again, there are no real negotiations going on. There can't be any real negotiations going on. We've sent real estate developers to do our nuclear negotiating. Iran knows it. Also, they're kind of winning, so they, aren't really likely to negotiate on our terms. And, they also know very well. They claim they've been instructed by semi-trusted sources within the American government to ignore everything Trump says anyway. So now he says the negotiations aren't going anywhere, and I don't care because the whole thing is boring. And then, of course, there's always something. There's always a post. There's always a tweet. There's always a piece of video somewhere. Let's see if I can't find the archival video from way back when. I don't know. But I guess at the beginning of the war, so late February, early March, he must have been asked about the war in general, though probably not asked, do you think the war is boring? That they didn't get to that yet. But this is actually, I saw it circulated on Blue Sky by Darth, who just says, this is amazing how much he rambles about how he won't get bored, LOL. Let me see if I can play this clip here for you, but this must have been from the early part of the war here.
We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is,
listen to that weak
whatever
voice,
it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored.
Okay.
If I get bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I guarantee you that. This is a very weak and wheezy voice. When was that from? I'm kind of curious. But anyway, yeah, like a good solid 30 seconds of rambling about how not only is he not bored by this, and he could never be bored by this, but he doesn't get bored, period. Just want to say, I'm really bored by the whole thing. Just another thing. But, as is always the case, it won't surprise you to know I do have to keep being reminded that a core tenet of Trumpism is intentionally telling impossibly obvious lies and then enjoying making everyone else deal with them. So that's the role of the show, of course. I have to tell everybody that, and we have to deal with the impossibly egregious lies every single time. All right. In other news, let's see. I just thought this was an interesting piece here to add to the context. Todd Blanche, of course, known to us in the most fun way as the acting Attorney General. Do you know he used to be a real and serious lawyer? It's true. He was, of course, Trump's personal lawyer during, I don't even remember how many of the criminal cases against him and civil cases against him, etc. But at the time, when he took the role, everybody was a little bit surprised by it because everybody knows that everything Trump touches dies. And they were like, Todd Blanche, you're a fairly serious person. Why are you allowing this to happen? And no one got a real answer as to why he was allowing it to happen, except that he must have calculated, well, everyone will laugh at me, but I will be at least the acting Attorney General, and I'll get to do things. And I suppose if people laugh at me in very painful ways, I could simply have them arrested and prosecuted, and that would make me feel better. But Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney and now legal commentator online, has asked that question in her Substack or Substack style newsletter, asking the question in the title, What Happened to Todd Blanche? Just a reminder that of what he abandoned. I think it's important to know. Once a mainstream lawyer, the acting Attorney General has become one of Donald Trump's most culpable enablers. It's an unfathomable betrayal of the American people. But you better start fathoming it, I guess. This is going to sound incredible, or maybe incredibly foolish, but for a short stretch last year at the start of Donald Trump's second presidency, there was a belief among career Justice Department lawyers that Todd Blanche was going to save us. It's hard to even describe how bad things got and how quickly inside the Justice Department after Trump's inauguration. With Blanche and Pam Bondi both awaiting Senate confirmation, management of the Justice Department initially fell to Emil Bove. Bove is a grim man who was known within the DOJ from an earlier stint as a federal prosecutor in Manhattan. There, he had earned a reputation as an aggressive and temperamental manager who left amid a cloud of misconduct complaints. Bove later served alongside Blanche on Trump's criminal defense team, which led to this early post at DOJ and then a federal judgeship. Typically, interim leaders cool their heels until the president's political nominees are confirmed, but that was not the case with Bove. With astonishing speed, he assumed the role of relentless enforcer of the president's policies on Inauguration Day. Bove began purging career lawyers and FBI agents, including some of the department's most senior experts. After a shocking wave of early firings and demotions, a friend called to congratulate me on, quote, surviving the first bloodletting. Bove did not limit himself to the internal affairs of the department. He doggedly executed Trump's immigration agenda. He threatened to prosecute local officials who refused to cooperate. He reportedly directed department lawyers to ignore court orders, limiting their authority, and tell the courts, F you. He caused a standoff with career prosecutors over the dismissal of the corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Have you forgotten about that since then? A Trump ally, of course, triggering a slew of resignations. On February 4th, 2 weeks into Bove's reign, Pam Bondi was confirmed. Unlike Bove, Bondi had never worked in the Justice Department. She assumed a largely ceremonial role as Attorney General. On her first day in office, Bondi sent a slew of stern memos to the career workforce, underscoring the importance of loyalty to the president and vigorous pursuit of his political agenda above all else, which is actually, upside down and backwards for the DOJ. We were told that those who resisted would be rooted out and terminated. Beyond her written missives, Bondi did not interact with the career workforce. She seemed disinclined to interfere with Beauvais' iron-fisted management of the department's day-to-day work. Meanwhile, Dodgy was operating. Remember those guys? Yeah. They were operating in the background, gutting some federal agencies and threatening mass layoffs at others. There was a shared understanding among DOJ's staff that neither Bondi nor Beauvais would protect us from Elon Musk's chainsaw. Everyone on my team and everyone around me was panicked, demoralized, and afraid. Someone said to me early on that everything would be fine, quote, once Todd gets here. That's how it seems so astounding now, don't you think? But I am reminded, by the way, everything would be fine. That, too, another of the big items of discussion online for today, that Trump's other assessment of what's going on with the Iran war, besides being bored by the negotiations, is relax. Everything will be fine. Everything will work out well in the end. It always does. But I guess that's an interesting reminder of our dive from a couple of weeks ago and a couple of months or maybe even years ago into the power of positive thinking, I guess. I guess that's the lesson you learned. If you're sitting on a pile of money or have access to a pile of money, everything will work out well in the end. It always does. And it always just seems to, you seem to land on your feet a lot more often when you are on a pile of money all the time, or can just steal it from Russian mobsters, or not steal it from, because then they'll kill you, but be asking for it and then granting them favors and helping them launder their money. In exchange, you get to keep some or build a golf course or something. Anyway, someone told Liz here that early on everything would be fine once Todd gets here. Now, ironically, that person was ousted by Beauvais before Blanche ever arrived. I don't know if that's ironic, really, but anyway, but still, I heard variations of that refrain repeated many times by many people up until the day Blanche was sworn in as Deputy Attorney General. I didn't know Blanche, so I had no real basis for an opinion, but many of my colleagues knew him from his 8-year tenure as an assistant U.S. attorney in Manhattan, one of DOJ's most prestigious postings. By reputation, Blanche was a capable prosecutor and well-liked by his DOJ colleagues. He also had other respectable legal credentials, including partnership at a top-tier law firm. These ties to mainstream legal circles, the optimistic logic went, had to be deeper and more enduring than a 2-year stint in Trump world. The idea that Blanche would be a lifeline or a savior for the department became a hopeful refrain among career DOJ staff at a very grim time. No one wanted to believe that the early turmoil was actually a feature, not a bug, of Trump's Justice Department, nor did we consider that Blanche's roots in the department might have been severed clean by his later professional endeavors. Blanche was sworn in as Deputy Attorney General on March 5th, 2025. 2 days later, he fired me. So, without getting too far into it, I guess that'll do it. That'll dissuade you that he's there to save you, I guess. Although, to be fair, I think if he had fired a bunch of her colleagues that were well respected, she likewise would have said, oh yeah, I guess this isn't what we thought it was going to be. But firing you, well, that'll seal it. Blanche's tenure at the Justice Department has been nothing short of devastating for the workforce, the institution, and the rule of law. The fundamental problem is that Blanche is operating as though he is still the president's personal attorney. The Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General serve the United States, not the president personally, but Blanche never made that adjustment. His unyielding loyalty to Donald Trump has compromised his loyalty to the United States. In legal terms, Blanche has a conflict of interest. The interests of Blanche's former client, Donald Trump, are frequently in conflict with the interests of Blanche's current client, the United States. When he assumed the role of Deputy Attorney General, Blanche swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Trump's demands are often contrary to the Constitution, which has created an untenable situation for Blanche. I think we all knew this, but avoiding conflicts of interest is a basic obligation of all lawyers because it is not possible to faithfully represent two clients whose interests are at odds, which is a good reason to reopen his case against the IRS, don't you think? But Blanche has refused to take any steps to mitigate his conflict, knowing that doing so would cost him his job. Trump never forgave his first-term Attorney General Jeff Sessions for recusing himself from the Russia investigation to avoid a conflict of interest. True, good point. For Blanche, recusal from matters involving Trump is out of the question, not just because it would anger the president. The issue is existential. Recusal would spell the end of his usefulness. Blanche's unshakable loyalty to Trump is the whole reason he was chosen to lead the Justice Department. He was not selected for his skill or intellect, which are middling. Oh, really? Okay. I mean, he was respected at one point, but okay, maybe he's not top-notch. It was his willingness to put his thumb on the scales of justice that Donald Trump banked on. In this respect, Blanche has not disappointed. As Deputy Attorney General, and now, what kind of Attorney General? The acting kind. Blanche has repeatedly used his official position to serve the personal and political interests of Donald Trump. He has approved the use of levers of justice as tools of retribution and political warfare. He has signed off on special treatment for the president's allies and supporters. And when Trump's interests have conflicted with the country's interests, Blanche has placed Trump above America every single time. Blanche was asked during his Senate confirmation how he would manage conflicts of interest stemming from his prior representation of Donald Trump. He responded, "In the event of any potential conflict of interest, I will consult with the appropriate Department of Justice ethics officials and act consistent with governing regulations." Oh. Once Blanche was confirmed, the department's senior ethics official advised him that he needed to recuse himself from matters involving President Trump, and that official was fired by Pam Bondi shortly thereafter. Blanche's bad acts as deputy and acting attorney general run the gamut from lying to cheating to stealing. It's not a huge gamut, but it's a familiar one. It's hard to compile an exhaustive list because there have been so many, and there are likely many more we don't even know about. But here are some that certainly deserve consideration as the worst of the worst of Blanche's transgressions. So take notes, because one day we're going to have to put him on trial, I would say. Number one, the sham settlement of Trump's IRS lawsuit. Okay? Top billing. My pick for the single most corrupt of Blanche's actions is the settlement of, and it's not a settlement, of course, Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. This sham settlement, all right, approved by Todd Blanche, creates the $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund and tacked on a staggeringly broad release of claims against Donald Trump and his affiliates. The fund takes nearly $2 billion of taxpayer money and redistributes it through a secret process to allies and supporters of the president who have no legal entitlement to the funds. Among those who can expect a payday are a cadre of election deniers and January 6th rioters, including those who beat and injured police officers. In a television interview, Blanche scoffed at the idea this might be objectionable, asserting people that hurt police get money all the time. I mean, okay. Anyway, oh, by the way, I mean, just a further note on January 6thers and election deniers who count themselves Trump allies and who might be getting money. Tina Peters is free. She's out. Monday, yesterday, was her release date. The idiot governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, having caved to Trump's pressure, and I'd be interested to know one day how that worked in Polis's head. Anyway, while emphasizing that Trump would take no money from the fund, and I think that's probably a lie too, Blanche gave Trump an even more valuable payday in the form of a general release of claims by the United States. The release is staggering in scope. It covers all claims, known and unknown, that the United States could assert against Donald Trump, his businesses, and his family members. What about this idea of unknown things? Like we discover massive fraud later on, or he goes and perpetrates massive fraud later on. Well, we said we're releasing you from liability for those things. So just back up a truck, steal Fort Knox, raid the Social Security Trust Fund and transfer $1 trillion to yourself. Sorry, can't prosecute you. Not only do you have presidential immunity anyway, but we've released all known and unknown claims against you. Wow. It prohibits the United States from investigating, auditing, or suing Trump even after he leaves office for any actions up to the date of the settlement agreement. Oh, I see. But, later on they could just say, no, it actually says all of them, even in the future. Would it say that? No. Will they change the text so that it does say that? I don't even know that they would really do that. They would just claim that it applies that way and everybody knew it and see what happens. Anyway, in effect, it signs away our rights to seek any recourse from Donald Trump for the corruption, abuse, and looting of our government perpetrated by him and his sons and their companies. We can't try to recover the ill-gotten gains from the corrupt business endeavors, self-dealing government contracts, and insider stock trading that have lined the pockets of the Trump family. We can't collect unpaid tax obligations, which could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and we get nothing in return. All of this was orchestrated under the pretext of a, quote, settlement of Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS, which only makes it more corrupt. Trump's lawsuit was utterly frivolous. The presiding judge made known that she smelled collusion between Trump and his Justice Department, and the parties were well aware that dismissal was imminent when they inked the settlement agreement. As a steward of taxpayer funds and the top attorney for the United States, Blanche had a duty to the American people to defend us against this frivolous lawsuit, but instead he did exactly the opposite. He signed away our rights and our money for the benefit of his former client, Donald Trump. Number two, of course, the Epstein files fiasco. And there is, I guess, a sort of mini burst of Epstein-related news today, which many of you, if we do find time to talk about it, will say, I thought we already knew that. But I guess, we guessed that it was true, and somebody who may or may not be in a position to say or to have known that it was true now says it was true, although she also has some ulterior motives as well. But basically, Paolo Zampoli's ex-wife, what's her name? I forget. Anyway, we'll get to the name later on. It's important and everything, but she says, oh yeah, by the way, Paolo Zampoli didn't introduce Melania to Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein did. She was an escort for Jeffrey Epstein, and that was the nature of the relationship. But people have claimed that was true before too, so whatever. All right, welcome back, everybody. And all right, we'll see if we can get to that Melania news later on. First, though, the second of Liz Oyer's extensive list of the alleged crimes of Todd Blanche against the United States and the Department of Justice. The Epstein files fiasco in number two. Before she was ousted, Pam Bondi tasked Blanche with overseeing the department's release of the Epstein files. He has botched this responsibility at every stage, most egregiously by failing to protect the personal identifying information of dozens of Epstein's victims. Yes, by the way, just thought we'd mention that. The department still has not released all the files required by law. That's a problem, too. Blanche has made repeated misrepresentations in defense of his handling of the matter, including falsely claiming that the department has released all the files, when in fact it has released only about half. But as you know, I do have to keep being reminded that a core tenet of Trumpism is to intentionally tell impossibly obvious lies and enjoy making everyone else deal with them. So here we are, dealing with that impossible lie. Blanche's legal failures have been accompanied by equally or more disturbing moral failures. In one of his first public statements as acting attorney general, I think we've been playing the clip enough, so we'll just skip it this time, Blanche declared his intent to close this chapter without completing it, saying that the Epstein files, quote, should not be a part of anything going forward at the DOJ. Oh. No prosecutions, no investigations, not even a release in compliance with the law, right? He has persistently refused to meet with Epstein's victims and lied about it, falsely claiming in recent congressional testimony that he has met with many Epstein survivors. His dismissive approach to the whole matter is encapsulated in a comment made to Fox News in February. Quote, The American people need to understand that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. That's what you need to understand, you dumb American people. So how do you like that? By the way, right, no meetings with victims, but yes, meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Number 3, the quid pro quo with Ghislaine Maxwell, that very self-same issue. And throwing in quid pro quo is a good one, too. While Blanche has shown no compassion for Epstein's victims, he has shown quite a bit for Epstein's literal partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell. Last summer, Blanche personally traveled to Florida. And it is a sacrifice to travel to Florida in the summer, where Maxwell was in prison and spent 2 days there meeting behind closed doors with Maxwell and her attorney. Notably, Maxwell retained David Marcus, a longtime associate of Blanche's, to represent her shortly before this meeting. Marcus later spoke about bringing camembert cheese and fresh bread to this meeting at Maxwell's request. No file in it even. But anyway, for the Deputy Attorney General to personally interview an incarcerated witness is highly irregular. I don't know anyone who's worked at DOJ who's ever heard of this happening. For the Deputy Attorney General to personally interview this witness was a travesty of justice and an irreconcilable conflict of interest. The apparent purpose of the meeting was to get a statement from Maxwell exonerating Blanche's former client Donald Trump from any involvement with Epstein's crimes. As a convicted sex trafficker of children serving a 20-year prison sentence, Maxwell, of course, had no credibility and every reason to tell Blanche exactly what he wanted to hear in the hope that he would return the favor. And he did. Maxwell told Blanche that Trump was a perfect gentleman, and then she was transferred to a minimum security prison camp in Texas. This with, I guess, camembert freely available. This move would not have been possible without Blanche's intervention. Longstanding DOJ policy explicitly prohibits housing convicted sex offenders in minimum security camps based on concerns for public safety. Remember that? Remember that requirement of the Department of Justice, public safety? Only a top official like Blanche could waive this rule, and there are no known examples of it happening until now. Number 4, the vindictive prosecution of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Yes, another name from the past. Don't forget that one. Blanche's egregious misdeeds in the service of the president's immigration enforcement agenda are numerous. One that stands out among many is the retaliatory prosecution of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, which Blanche orchestrated. Abrego is, of course, the Maryland resident who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador early last year. After a federal judge ordered the Justice Department to facilitate his return to the United States, Blanche opened a criminal investigation into Abrego that resulted in his indictment on charges of human trafficking. Abrego's attorneys moved to dismiss the case on grounds of vindictive prosecution, arguing that the retaliatory indictment violated his constitutional due process rights. After conducting an evidentiary hearing, the presiding judge took the extraordinary step of dismissing the charges, blaming Blanche's tainted investigation. That's a quote. The court, and not just tainted investigation, but Blanche's tainted investigation is the quote. The court called the case, quote, an abuse of prosecuting power, writing, quote, the objective evidence shows that absent Abrego's successful lawsuit challenging his removal to El Salvador, the government would not have brought this prosecution. The ruling is remarkable because vindictive prosecution challenges are almost never successful. But golly, if they aren't successful more times than ever in this administration. He's not the only one that did it. The law establishes an exacting standard of proof for these claims, which gives every benefit of the doubt to the prosecutors. It is even more remarkable that the ruling assigns fault to Todd Blanche personally. Blanche's personal oversight and involvement in matters of particular political or personal interest to Donald Trump illustrates the extent to which he has abandoned his duties to the country. And in fact, certainly as an officer of the court, and he should be disbarred, I would add. Number 5, revenge prosecution of Trump enemies. Beyond Abrego Garcia, aware of the president's frustrations with Pam Bondi's failure to prosecute his political enemies, Blanche has amped up those efforts as, once more, Attorney General. In his first 2 months in that role, Blanche has initiated a new prosecution against James Comey, the seashell case, of course, indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center, and ramped up the, quote, grand conspiracy investigation targeting former CIA Director John Brennan and others who purportedly conspired to undermine Trump during his first presidency. Blanche ousted the respected senior prosecutor handling the Brennan matter and replaced her with a Trump loyalist, 81-year-old Joseph DeGeneva, posting on his official Twitter account, "Welcome to the fight, Joe." Blanche has also reportedly approved new investigations targeting Trump enemies, including former White House staffer Cassidy Hutchinson, the Democratic fundraising organization Act Blue, and most recently 82-year-old E. Jean Carroll, who won civil judgments against Trump for sexual abuse and defamation. And now that Bill Pulte, who brought malicious and vindictive prosecutions against several Trump enemies, including James Comey, is now going to be Director of National Intelligence, he can now trump up charges of national security breaches by any and all of the enemies. I was in charge of mortgage financing for homes, so I charged people with mortgage finance crimes. Now I'm going to be Director of National Intelligence. What's next? Blanche has wholeheartedly embraced the president's desire to weaponize the justice system against his enemies. He has claimed the president has a, quote, right and a, quote, duty, in fact, to use the justice system this way. He has said Americans should be, quote, happy that the president is dictating the Justice Department's prosecutions. All of this is wrong and dangerous. It is the Attorney General's job to exercise independent legal judgment, not to rubber stamp subversive and illegal actions by the president. It is the Attorney General's duty to put brakes on executive actions that damage the rule of law and erode public trust in the justice system. Instead, Todd Blanche has enabled these actions. In myriad ways, Blanche has dishonored his oath to uphold the Constitution and violated his professional obligations as a lawyer. But wait, there's more. Number 6, refusal to investigate the use of force by ICE agents. At the same time, he has shown his readiness to open frivolous investigations into Trump's enemies. Blanche has refused to open meritorious investigations into allies, supporters, and aides to the president. Nowhere has that been clearer than in cases involving the use of force by ICE agents. Perhaps most shockingly, the Justice Department refused to open a civil rights investigation into the killing of Renee Good, an unarmed citizen, by ICE agents in Minneapolis in January. Blanche declared that there was, quote, no basis for such an investigation. Federal prosecutors and FBI agents who attempted to investigate were ordered to stand down, prompting mass resignations that left the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office in chaos. Number 7, purges of career employees. Blanche has presided over the removal and reassignment of career experts throughout the Justice Department and the FBI. These personnel actions violate longstanding civil service laws, of course, that protect career employees from removal without cause and without due process. I was among the first to be illegally fired by Blanche, our writer says. Last March, after I refused to comply with a directive to rubber stamp the reinstatement of gun ownership rights for Mel Gibson, a friend of the president who had lost his right to own a firearm when he was convicted of a domestic violence crime. After I spoke about my firing, Blanche accused me of lying, sent U.S. Marshals to my home, and filed an ethics complaint against me with the D.C. Bar, which was later dismissed, but only after I had to hire counsel to represent me. Blanche also fired other senior experts, including the director of the department's Office of Professional Responsibility, naturally, which investigates and punishes misconduct by DOJ employees, and the director, well, it doesn't anymore, but it used to, and the director of the Office of Information Policy, which oversees compliance with public transparency laws such as the Freedom of Information Act. These firings, like mine, were calculated to remove institutional guardrails against corruption and misconduct, which could slow or impede the political objectives of the president. Blanche has personally or by proxy presided over a slew of other retaliatory firings. During the confirmation process, Blanche offered assurances that career employees who worked on cases involving Donald Trump, quote, should have no fear of losing their jobs, unquote, vowing that, quote, no agent or prosecutor will lose their job if they simply followed assigned duties, unquote. Well, you shouldn't have any fear of it. You should just accept it, I guess. Maybe that's a true statement. 1 year later, he announced, quote, "There is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions," unquote, meaning he fired them all. In an interview in March, Blanche boasted that he, quote, "cleaned house at DOJ and FBI, removing over 200 attorneys and agents assigned to investigations involving Donald Trump." Under Blanche's leadership, the department's workforce has been decimated by both voluntary resignations and forced removals. DOJ has lost approximately 25% of its lawyers in the last year, along with thousands of FBI agents. This unprecedented exodus of knowledge and experience has devastating implications for the department's ability to fulfill its vital missions of keeping America safe. But of course, if they don't care about that, well then, they're not going to be very unhappy. Number 8, attacks on the judiciary. Blanche has chafed at any oversight of his actions at all, even by courts, which are required by the Constitution to judge the legality of executive actions and policies. Blanche has refused to accept limits on executive power, routinely condemning unfavorable rulings as the work of, quote, "rogue activist judges." He has even gone so far as to declare that the Justice Department is at war with the judiciary. That's a quote, war. This attitude and this rhetoric is dangerous to judges who have faced unprecedented threats to their safety. It's also dangerous to our constitutional order, which is premised on each of the 3 co-equal branches of our government accepting the legitimacy and respecting the authority of the others. Number 9, and I feel like we're getting towards the end, attacks on state bars. Were we aware of this one? Blanche has also worked to undermine independent oversight of DOJ attorneys by state bar associations. Every practicing lawyer is required to be licensed by the bar of at least one state or the District of Columbia, and to follow the rules of professional conduct of that bar. Department of Justice lawyers are no exceptions. Under the federal law, DOJ lawyers are required to abide by the rules of the state bar where they're licensed, and they're subject to the disciplinary authority of that bar. Historically, DOJ lawyers have also been subject to internal discipline through the department's Office of Professional Responsibility, but Blanche effectively shuttered that office last year when he fired its director. State bars, which have the power to suspend or even revoke an attorney's license for professional misconduct, are one of a few remaining sources of accountability for Blanche and his colleagues. For that reason, Blanche has campaigned to shut them down. Earlier this year, the department announced a proposed rulemaking, sure to be challenged in court, that would attempt to shield department lawyers from state bar discipline at the department's request. Blanche has been particularly focused on the D.C. bar, where many DOJ lawyers are licensed due to the department's headquarters in Washington. Blanche has decried it as, quote, "one of the most activist, obnoxious bars when it comes to going after conservative lawyers," unquote. Well, they have the most cause to do it, of course. He has called it, quote, "a blatantly Democrat-run political organization," unquote, and a, quote, "partisan arm of leftist causes," unquote. In May, Blanche filed a lawsuit against the bar's chief disciplinary counsel and his office, accusing them of, you'll never believe it, weaponizing the bar disciplinary process against federal government attorneys. And you simply can't have that. Weaponization, somebody's got to do something about this. In a well-functioning Department of Justice, leadership welcomes and, in fact, demands oversight of its attorneys. DOJ lawyers are expected to adhere to the highest standards of ethics and professionalism because this is vital to preserving the legitimacy of the institution and that old presumption of regularity, right? The job of a DOJ lawyer is not to win a case at all costs. It is to do justice. That means adhering to the law and playing by the rules. The fact that Blanche chafes at this idea is a dim reflection of on his character, his methods, and his motivations. Number 10, and I have no reason to believe that she's being limited to 10, but maybe she decided to do a top 10 list, is advancing conspiracy theories and lies. Blanche has not hesitated to embrace conspiracy theories and tell outright lies if they further Trump's objectives or reinforce his perceived grievances. Blanche has stoked Trump's dangerous and false election fraud narrative. He recently told Fox News, quote, "There's a ton of evidence that the election was rigged." He has accused election leaders or elected leaders in Minnesota of terrorism. He has stoked mistrust in the media, saying at his confirmation hearing, quote, "I don't believe what the media says as a matter of practice." He has also made demonstrably false claims about the Epstein files, the $1.8 billion slush fund, the case against the Southern Poverty Law Center, and a host of other matters. Blanche often delivers these false narratives in a manner not suited to the Attorney General of the United States, to put it mildly. He has signed his name to court filings on behalf of the United States that read like Truth Social rants penned by Donald Trump himself. He has used his official social media account to attack the press, judges, and his critics, at times deploying the vocabulary of a petulant child, clown emojis, FAFO, etc. This pattern of irresponsible, dishonest, and embarrassing behavior by Todd Blanche has made a mockery of his office. So what happened to Todd Blanche? That question, the one we came here for, is often asked within legal circles to which Blanche once belonged. Those who knew him before Trump, from his days as a prosecutor or in big law, are baffled by this transformation. I don't know Blanche personally, and I don't have any special insight, but as a close observer, my perception is that Blanche has genuinely internalized Donald Trump's grievances and made them his own. Like Trump, Blanche followed an unconventional path to power. Blanche got his start in the Justice Department working as a paralegal while he attended law school at night. After graduating, he worked for 8 years as an assistant U.S. attorney before leaving the department for private practice. Unlike many of his predecessors, he did not ascend through intermediate political ranks of the department. He didn't hold any of the roles in the department's leadership offices that are common stepping stones to the top jobs. The lack of traditional qualifications could, in theory, be fine and even healthy for the department, which has long suffered from being too insular. The tradition of leadership ascending through the ranks has at times limited the department's ability to innovate, to adapt, and even empathize with certain sections of the population it serves. I've long believed that the organization could benefit from leaders with different perspectives and more diverse personal and professional experiences, but what Blanche brought to the table was an axe to grind. His work appears to be fueled by genuine feelings of moral injury based on his close relationship with Donald Trump. Blanche was Trump's personal lawyer for 2 years before he was sworn in as Deputy Attorney General, and during that time, Blanche has said he typically worked 70 hours per week on matters for Donald Trump. That's 10 hours a day every day. Blanche was in deep. Even now, Blanche communicates with palpable anger about the past prosecutions of Donald Trump. He lashed out at Jack Smith, calling him, quote, a proven liar, who made, quote, fake accusations in, quote, his failed vendetta against the president. Apparently provoked by a reporter's question, Blanche added, quote, the media should stop slopping up the trash dropped by the Democrats on their path to misleading the American public. What? He has accused New York's Attorney General of trying, quote, to destroy the former president's businesses and financially ruin him and his children by suing Trump for civil fraud. Blanche has derided his critics for their short memories, he says, writing on his official Twitter account, Biden's DOJ and the Democrat machine tried for years to put President Trump and his associates in jail. They did everything in their power to destroy livelihoods, reputations, and families. They weaponized the government, and that's something that we cannot and will not forget. They're corrupt enough to try again. We will not forget. Well, we also will not forget. It is apparent from Blanche's public remarks that everything Trump experienced feels very personal to Blanche. Blanche often speaks in the first person about what he endured alongside Trump. Of the supposed weaponization of the Justice Department under Joe Biden, Blanche said recently, quote, I lived it every single day for 2 years. At his confirmation hearing, Blanche said, I stood next to and defended President Trump as partisan prosecutors and politicians abused our legal system in completely unprecedented ways to fulfill a political agenda, which was prosecuting and attacking President Trump. You know, every Republican accusation is a confession. Echoing Trump's grievances about the press, Blanche has said, I have firsthand knowledge that many members of the media outright lie in the way they, quote, report facts. Blanche's shared grievances with Donald Trump seemed to be amplified by his own rejections and slights. To become Trump's lawyer, Blanche was forced to resign from his partnership at Cadwalader, I hope I've pronounced that even close to the way they said it, a white shoe New York law firm, and hang his own shingle. The firm's lack of support reportedly left Blanche bitter. Blanche uprooted his family and relocated to Florida. He bought a home near his client in Palm Beach and switched his party affiliation to Republican. Blanche's one-time colleagues unsubtly questioned his life choices. Now in Washington, Blanche has not had the warm reception typically given to the country's most powerful lawyer. He has faced unsparing criticism from prominent professional organizations. Elite membership groups have shunned him. Blanche, in turn, has banned department lawyers from participating in events of the American Bar Association, the nation's leading professional organization for lawyers, which Blanche is accused of undermining the department's priorities through its support of, quote, activist causes. These dynamics have pushed Blanche further and further into the fringes of the legal profession, at the same time drawing him closer to Donald Trump. The bond he feels with Trump seems to be not just professional but emotional for Blanche. He recently declared, quote, "I love you, sir," unquote, when asked how he would respond if Trump asked him to step aside. He has called his representation of Trump, quote, "an honor that I will cherish until the day I die," unquote. Let's find out whether that's true. It appeared to some observers that Blanche held on to at least a few scruples during his tenure as Deputy Attorney General. For example, he reportedly opposed the firing of Eric Siebert, the U.S. Attorney in Virginia, who found insufficient evidence to support indicting Trump's enemies James Comey and Letitia James. But any willingness Blanche may have had to push back on Trump's demands was abandoned when he was named acting Attorney General in April. As soon as the president tasked him with delivering the results that Pam Bondi couldn't, Blanche threw himself all in. As Trump put it, Blanche has been, quote, unleashed. With eager rivals waiting in the wings, Blanche knows he needs to deliver what the president wants to keep the job. What sets Blanche apart from other political appointees, including Pam Bondi, is that it appears he wants to settle Trump's scores as badly as Trump does. Whereas Bondi was known for her performative outrage, Blanche's outrage comes across as genuine. There is a bitter edge to his words. There is a simmering anger just below the surface. Blanche is not a true conspiracy theorist in the vein of Ed Martin, but neither is he simply posturing for his boss in the manner of many of his colleagues, like Bondi and Jeanine Pirro, you think? Really? Who possess mainstream legal qualifications. What? And strong survival instincts. This makes Blanche a much more dangerous leader. From my perspective as a lawyer, Todd Blanche is Donald Trump's most culpable co-conspirator. Blanche has made possible Trump's corruption of our justice system and his looting of our tax dollars. He has been a willing, even eager participant in the dismantling of the rule of law. All of this has required him to turn his back on ethical obligations as an attorney and the oath he swore to uphold the Constitution. What Blanche has done as deputy and acting Attorney General is an unfathomable betrayal of the American people. It is an incomprehensible display of disloyalty to the United States, the client he has sworn duty to protect. Blanche seems to know this. Speaking at a conservative political conference in March, Blanche said everyone in the Trump administration, quote, is afraid they're going to get indicted, unquote, once they lose control of the levers of power. Many of us are asking what we can do as citizens to rein in Todd Blanche. One important thing is to keep fighting in court. The judicial process sometimes moves slowly, but it gets results. Late last week, a group of former federal judges successfully persuaded the court presiding over Trump's IRS lawsuit to reopen the case to consider whether the settlement agreement is an illegal fraud on the court. We won't know the final outcome of this proceeding for some weeks or months, but in the meantime, a different court has blocked payments from the settlement fund while another legal challenge is considered. Another thing we can do is seek accountability through those oversight authorities that are still available and functioning. Calls to our elected representatives, particularly Republicans, are especially important right now as Congress considers whether to take action to cancel the $1.8 billion settlement pot Another avenue of accountability mentioned above is state bar associations. Todd Blanche is licensed in New York and subject to discipline under New York's rules of professional conduct, herein linked, for attorneys. I would argue that Blanche has violated these rules in myriad ways. Anyone can submit a complaint against a member of the bar for investigation by its attorney grievance committee. I'll be sharing more information in my next post about how that process works, so stay tuned. Thank you for reading, and please share. And yes, please do wait for us to come back from the next 2-minute break, which begins in 30 seconds. Here's the music to introduce it. I wonder whether she has posted the next post yet, although these things do tend to go on. I guess she's venting her spleen, but she knows where the bodies are buried, so it's well worth our time. Anyway, a complete accounting, or a near complete accounting, or a good start anyway, on what you should be indicting Todd Blanche for in the next Democratic administration, assuming there ever is one again.
Sup fam, it's your boy Darwin, aka Darwin_Darko, aka the most reasonable man in America, aka KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got one segment left. Let's double back and deliver on the previous mention of Epstein news involving Melania. Over at the Daily Beast, they have this story, and I guess it's going to require Instapaper reading to do. But the title of the piece, Melania named in bombshell new Epstein claims. I don't know how bombshell it is, but certainly interesting, and people will be talking about it. Allegations by a former Brazilian model contradict the First Lady's claims. And I told you who it was. I just couldn't remember what the name of the person was. Amanda Ungaro is the name of the person in question. The ex-wife, I believe, of Paolo Zampoli, who is a figure in Trump Epstein world for sure, and but continues to walk free, not unlike Donald Trump in that sense. Who wrote this piece? Farah Tomazin. Again, Daily Beast. Melania named in bombshell new Epstein claims. What's the bombshell? A former associate of Melania Trump has sensationally claimed the First Lady was an, quote, escort, unquote, for Jeffrey Epstein and met the president through the notorious sex offender. Former Brazilian model Amanda Ungaro dropped the bombshell allegation on a taped recording accusing her ex-partner, modeling agent turned presidential envoy, Paolo Zampoli, of lying about introducing Melania and Donald Trump at a party in 1998. I'm sure he would like credit for it, but I guess she disagrees. The story of how Melania Naus later met her future husband while working as one of Zampoli's models in New York is now part of MAGA folklore. They're actually happy about that one. It is also something the First Lady referenced when she held a surprise press conference in April. Remember that? I've mostly forgotten the content of that, but yeah, she did have it. Mysteriously denouncing what she claimed were, quote, mean-spirited and politically motivated lies linking her to the late child sex trafficker. But in her recording posted on Twitter overnight, Ungaro, who has been locked in a bitter custody battle with Zampoli for months, disputes this version of events. Let's tell the public, you never was the one introducing Melania to Trump. It was Jeffrey Epstein, as she was escort of Jeffrey Epstein. That's how she met Donald Trump, Ungaro claims in the WhatsApp recording. Oh, I see. And I know, because I was with you 20 years, and you always told me it was not you, it was Jeffrey Epstein, she added. It's an odd thing to say, unless, of course, it's true. There's no real good reason to deny the credit for it. The Daily Beast has reached out to the White House and the First Lady's office for comment. Zampoli, meanwhile, told the Daily Beast, quote, "I think it is a disgrace that she dares to say this about our marvelous First Lady," unquote. Snoozer, but okay. "I'm truly concerned for her health, and I think she truly needs some therapy," the Trump ally said of his ex. Zampoli is now a special envoy for global partnerships and member of the Kennedy Center Board of Trustees. They're doing great, too. Ungaro was 17 when she boarded Epstein's private jet, the so-called Lolita Express, on a flight from Paris to New York in June of 2002. She was accompanied by her then agent, French modeling scout Jean-Luc Brunel, who was also a recruiter for Epstein. How do you like that? The pair spent years moving in the same social circles as the Trumps and were photographed alongside Donald and Melania Trump at Mar-a-Lago events. Ungaro also made more headlines last year, accusing Zampoli of using his influence in Washington to trigger her arrest by U.S. immigration authorities amid an ongoing custody dispute. Zampoli, however, strongly denies this, as does the Department of Homeland Security. So I guess it's true. The latest claim, which was posted on Ungaro's Twitter account but has now been deleted, has once again put the Epstein saga under the spotlight, with Ungaro suggesting that Zampoli was, quote, covering for Melania, and vice versa, after he was given a position of power within the administration. This directly contradicts statements the First Lady made earlier this year. Oh no, that can't be. When she told reporters, "I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania." So, there you go. I've said it. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertaking, she told reporters in April. It was not clear at the time what had prompted the First Lady to make her statement, which even seemed to catch the president by surprise. But around the same time, a series of posts from Ungaro began appearing online as direct replies to Melania's archived First Lady account, claiming to know her and threatening to, quote, expose everything that I know. She knows that I witnessed highly compromising interactions over the course of 20 years, Ungaro said in an interview with the Courier. What Courier? I don't know. In April. Is that linked here? Can I go find out? Probably not. I mean, it's linked, but I'm going to say it's going to be too disruptive to try and open that up, and who knows where it's leading. Anyway, according to files released by the Justice Department, some of the few that they have released, a one-time assistant to Epstein told the FBI, effectively under a penalty of perjury, that the pedophile introduced Trump and Melania. Zampoli has nonetheless maintained for years that he was responsible for recruiting Melania to his New York agency. Even without an attorney, "I'm volunteering to go to Congress to testify about this because we have seen enough nonsense," he told the Daily Beast in an earlier interview as he recalled playing Cupid. Oh, that's so sweet. "I said, Melania meet Donald. Donald meet Melania. And then I left the table because I had 300 guests." The recording was first posted on the account of independent journalist and Substacker Anthony Andrews, who said he was asked to post it and tag Zampoli. However, the post was taken down sometime Monday, with Andrews later writing, "Unusual things continue to occur in the background. What's out there is out there now, but I will continue to be a messenger and follow the requests being made of me." What an important role. In reference to his post, Zampoli had earlier on Monday told the Daily Beast that "my lawyers are already on it and he's going to get a lawsuit." He later said in a post that most of the claims being pushed by Ungaro were AI generated. To which Andrews replied, "This is a pissing match you won't win." And he addresses it to Zampoli. "I have plenty of content, and I assure you it is not AI generated." Is a pissing match over whether or not it's AI generated? I don't think so. I mean, I guess so, but I don't know if that just doesn't strike me as a serious accusation. All right. That's the Melania news. I don't think it's going to affect anything or impact anybody's real life, considering what else is going on out there. Let me share a couple other interesting stories with you. A less than political one on its surface, except that, of course, everything's political, and it involves AI, and AI making huge mistakes. And there are, a million different examples of that. But this one is from 404 Media? Is that one of the ones that I'll have to end up reading in Instapaper? I think so. But the story is in the headline as far as I'm concerned here. But do I have the right writer here? Let's see. Jason Koebler, Koebler for 404media.co. If you want to look it up yourself. And here's the headline. Hackers simply asked Meta AI, Meta company's AI, just ask their AI agent to give them access to high-profile Instagram accounts, and it did. It worked. That's pretty amazing. That's an innovative use of AI. I wish I had control of some celebrity's Instagram account, and then I would have a fun time. Hey, Meta, you own Instagram. Meta AI, would you please give me access to those accounts? Well, I'm a very powerful AI agent, so yes, here it is. Hackers say that they used Meta's AI support chatbot to break into a host of high-profile Instagram profiles by asking the support bot to change the email address associated with the target account. The claims coincide with a series of high-profile Instagram account takeovers, including the Barack Obama White House account. No, he's not in the White House anymore, and the Chief Master Sergeant of Space Forces account, and Sephora's account. That is an interesting assortment of accounts, and I wonder if there are any they were unsuccessful in getting a hold of, or whether they were literally I know, Barack Obama, and Sephora, and the Chief Master Sergeant of Space Force. Is that your neighbor or something? I'm just curious how you picked them. And I don't know why Sephora. But anyway, the news shows the extreme risk associated with offloading support or critical functions to an AI chatbot. It's only Meta, though. Don't worry about it, right? Users who have had their accounts stolen say there is no way to escalate their problem to a human. That's a bad thing, too. But in March, Meta announced that it was pushing AI support to all accounts across Facebook and Instagram, and that it would have the ability to reset passwords and perform other critical account maintenance functions. They said it as much. So basically, they invited this hack. Solutions, not just suggestions, the feature's product page says. Account security and recovery, including stealing it. Okay. Over the last several years, Telegram groups for security researchers and hacking groups have been sharing videos and screenshots of the steps taken to steal an account, which appeared to be shockingly easy. One video shows a hacker starting a conversation with Meta's AI support bot and asking it to link the target account with a new email address. Just link my new email address. This is my username. And just gave the, fake name. And I will send you the code. Thank you. Okay. that's pretty damn stupid. Quite honestly, I don't know what else to say about that, but I just wanted to put that out there as just yet another egregious example of the things we've turned over to AI without thinking about what it might mean and having like no security imagination ahead of time so that you could block this sort of thing from happening. I don't know. It just seems pretty wild. Another story, and I think this one Justice gave some time to yesterday, but I thought I might give a moment to it because there was sort of a personal angle on it for me. Do I have to open Raw Story in order to read this? Matt Laszlo at Raw Story writes this piece, and I guess are they fully paywalled now? That's interesting. That was not always the case, but at the moment it is. So here's the story, at least for the time being, from elsewhere. Convicted pedophile, and Trump insiders handed Congress access in credentialing mess. That's the headline that they've put on this piece. And here's the note. But by way of disclosure, I guess, there's an editorial note that Matt Laszlo, as part of the Congressional Bureau, or actually, I guess running his own, is it his own Congressional Bureau, and he's a freelancer for Raw Story? Matt Laszlo's Congressional Bureau, the LCB, has been credentialed by the Radio and Television Correspondents Association since 2012. So there is that. So he knows about this process. And I know a little bit about this process myself, although Matt Laszlo successfully made it through the process and I did not. But that's what's driving my interest in this one. America's most powerful TV networks have been handing out coveted congressional press credentials to people Congress has strictly barred from eligibility. Did you know that? They include a man arrested by the FBI on child pornography charges, Trump's own lawyer, Turning Point USA operatives, political activists, and press secretaries, all in an apparent violation of congressional statute. That's the finding of a Raw Story investigation, anyway, into the Radio Television Correspondents Association, or RTCA, a little-known congressionally empowered body that plays an outsized role over who in Washington gets access to the halls of power and who doesn't. It's a good description. Under the standing rules of the Senate, only people whose chief work and at least half their income comes from gathering or reporting broadcast news qualify for an RTCA credential. Applicants must also declare they're not employed by any government agency. The names of those approved for admission are then printed on the official congressional directory. The latest available version for the 118th Congress, which was the last Congress, is linked herein. Besides these broad regulations, Congress largely lets the press write its own rules and police itself, and the cops apparently have been asleep. The stakes are real. When Congress issued press credentials go to political operatives, lobbyists, and activists instead of being reserved. Read this wrong. When the congressionally approved credentials go to political operatives, lobbyists, and activists, instead of being reserved for journalists, it corrupts the pipeline of information flowing to the public and hands partisan actors the same privileged access as reporters tasked with holding power to account. Let's start with the incomprehensible. After the FBI raided reporter James Meek's home in 2022, he resigned in disgrace from ABC News. I don't think I even remember the story. But the following year, 2 months before new credentials are issued each spring, FBI agents arrested Meek, quote, for transporting images of child sexual abuse, unquote. According to the Justice Department, he was later convicted and imprisoned. RTCA, run by a small committee of network broadcasters and a handful of permanent staffers, approved a 2023-24 congressional press credential for him anyway. ABC News' representative at the Capitol has not responded to multiple requests for comment. Christina Bobb didn't just leave journalism. She became one of the most politically active figures in Trump's orbit. In April of 2021, Bobb and OAN White House correspondent Chanel Rion raised upwards of $600,000 through a personal nonprofit aimed at overturning the 2020 election. According to the Arizona Mirror, an open violation of RTCA's anti-activism rules, she was on Trump's legal team after the 2020 election. And here, maybe I'll just insert the beginning of the personal anecdote. I don't remember when it was, but way back when, in the days when I was working directly for Daily Kos and covering congressional issues and providing my explainers, et cetera, I actually had a slightly different idea, but than just covering Congress like as a beat reporter. But what I wanted to do with the radio and television gallery access was I understood at the time, and it was correct, C-SPAN's coverage of Congress, like floor footage, is not, we've been over this in a different capacity over the years on the show, but they don't produce the footage. It is House and Senate controlled cameras manned by House and Senate controlled staffers who shoot the footage, and that's the reason why every once in a while during government closures, right, we have weird angles and different was it government shutdowns, or what was it that was triggering the ability of C-SPAN to get their own cameras on the floor and shoot different angles. And it was very interesting and fun, and everybody enjoyed it. But normally their normal shots are government generated, which means that they don't own a copyright in them, for one thing. And they get them from the radio and TV gallery. The camera feeds go to the board there. They just plug into it and they put their C-SPAN bug over it and they do their own thing in covering it. They, as a matter of policy, they tend to offer no commentary whatsoever during the actual proceedings, though they do commentary and analysis later on when they've broken away from, when there's no session going on and they're free to break away. But it meant that a credentialed member of the radio and TV gallery would be able to access the same feed and do something different with it. And although there was no room on a cable network to add a second, parallel set of C-SPANs, on the internet you could stream it. My thought was, what if we streamed it and we had a different policy and we did offer analysis and commentary right along with floor coverage and actually explained what was going on and commented on it right then and there. Sort of a political science theater 3000 is what I was thinking of at the time. But at any rate, it didn't matter because the application was summarily rejected by the board as too political. Daily Kos would just never be permitted access to the press galleries in Congress and or the White House because, of course, remember, there were times, and this was what they pointed to, that I'm not we anymore, but at the time it was a we thing, linked to Act Blue pages for Democratic politicians. That was fundraising for them. We didn't raise the money. Everybody else did. It was the politicians who were running for office raising the money with Act Blue pages. We just simply said, here's the page. Sometimes it didn't even go along with, we endorsed this person. It was just, here's what happened, and here's that person's, whatever's in the news, and here's that person's Act Blue page. That was enough to exclude us. But I just wanted you to keep that in mind as we start to hear more and more about people who are no longer excluded by those same rules, though those rules have not changed. So Christina Bobb, OAN, all credentialed, despite the fact that, for instance, despite having left OAN in March of 2022, RTCA approved Christina Bobb for 2023 and 24 OAN congressional press credentials. It didn't work for him anymore, and she was working strictly in a partisan capacity for then former President Trump. But here's press passes as an OAN representative, no less. In the lead up to the 2024 election, Bobb was tapped to lead the Republican National Committee's election integrity program, which critics called a voter suppression effort. So, working now directly for the Republican National Committee, not too partisan to get press credentials for Christina Bobb. In April of 2024, while approved for an official congressional hard pass, a grand jury indicted Bob and 17 others on 9 counts of forgery, fraud, and conspiracy. Those hard passes, by the way, permanent ones, you can get day passes, which are, I guess, I don't know whether they actually call them soft passes or not, but hard passes. But the congressional hard pass also gets you into the White House if you want for press events there. One American News is in a league of its own. He notes 6 of the 22 credentialed OAN the credentials that OAN was approved for, 27.3% of them appear to violate RTCA bylaws. Pizzagate conspiracy peddler Jack Posobiec left OAN in May of 2021 to join Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, yet was still approved for RTCA credentials for the 118th Congress. Caitlin Sinclair left OAN in December of 2023 to become TPUSA's spokeswoman before running social media for the pro-Trump MAGA Incorporated Super PAC during the election. She's listed as approved for credentials too, despite RTCA having until April 25th, 2024 to correct the official congressional directory. Separately, Fox News requested and RTCA approved a credential for Turning Point USA Chief Marketing Officer Marina Minas, M-I-N-A-S, after she left the network, according to her LinkedIn. After she departed OAN for Newsmax in 2021, RTCA also okayed OAN credentials for Jennifer Pellegrino throughout the last Congress. She has since left media entirely and is now chief spokesperson for the America First Policy Institute. The RTCA Executive Committee, the body that approves credentials, is made up of broadcasters elected by their credentialed peers. They're the gatekeepers. Lilly Broadcasting submitted just 2 credential requests for 2023 and 24. One of them went to Matthew Knoedler, who left journalism in 2021 to become press secretary for Representative Mike Kelly, Republican of Pennsylvania. During the 2024 election, Knoedler served as communications director for Kelly's task force on the attempted assassination of Donald J. Trump. All while approved for a credential he was categorically ineligible for. Fox News also credentialed Tucker Carlson throughout the same period, even though the network's own lawyers had already convinced a federal court that Carlson is, quote, a commentator prone to rhetorical hyperbole, not a journalist. Mike Mastrian has been director of the Senate Radio and Television Gallery since 2005. I think that would have encompassed my application. He reports to the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, but he's also tasked with administering the will of the RTCA Executive Committee. Currently, Nate Reed of Scripps chairs the committee and also served on its 2023-24 board. He's joined by Vice Chair Frank Thorpe V of NBC, Kevin Frey of MS Now, and Rachel Knapp of Lilly Broadcasting. Throughout the 118th Congress, that's the same Lilly Broadcasting we were discussing a minute ago, I think. Anyway, throughout the entire 118th Congress, it was led by Fox Radio's Jared Halpern in 2023 and NBC's Ryan Nobles in 2024. Last year, it was led by Ali Pekarin of Disney-owned ABC. Multiple requests for comment to each current RTCA Executive Committee member and several former chairs has gone unanswered. RTCA conducts its business largely in secret. Member meetings are off the record. Credentialing criteria is rarely written down, thus ever evolving depending on who's applying. RTCA maintains 4 separate public websites: Senate, House, RTCA Capitol Hill, and RTCA. There's 2, I guess. I don't understand this listing, but okay. 4 separate House and Senate, I understand. RTCA, it just says Cap Hill, and RTCA Capitol Hill. I don't really understand that, but they flatly contradict each other at various points, including on membership requirements and its own governing constitution. Across those 4 sites, RTCA claims to have over 3,000, over 3,600, or over 3,700, and even more than 4,000 members. At $40 per credential, the difference between 3,000 and 4,000 is $40,000 in annual dues. So maybe they want to get that one straight. While the House site lists 3 membership tiers, active, temporary, and non-voting gallery membership, RTCACaphill.org claims RTCA's constitution establishes an honorary tier as well, reserved for those who, quote, have rendered outstanding service to the objects of this association. Those listed in the congressional directory aren't differentiated by membership tier. RTCA credentialing data for the 119th Congress isn't publicly available yet, and likely won't be until after this year's midterms, which of course means until it's all over and too late anyway. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. It brought me back to the story of how I once sought those credentials and what the basis was for their rejection, which only makes the rest of these stories that much more ridiculous. Okay, time now, believe it or not, to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy for today. And it's like 15 seconds earlier than I usually realize it's time to press that button. So that gives us some time to talk about what's coming up next. And let's see, topping the list here, Kash Patel's girlfriend filed an, quote, insane defamation suit against 2 MS Now reporters. Well, I'd be interested to hear about that one. And the way to do it is to stay tuned and do hear about it next, right here on Netroots Radio. Then, on the rest of the menu, MAGA world revolts. It is revolting as Trump's ex-National Security Advisor Mike Flynn is exposed as an agent for a close Putin ally. Do they really revolt about that? DUI hire Hegseth is breaking Pentagon rules and lying about purging women and black soldiers from the military. I understand he's purged another list of high-ranking brass promotions as well, the second time around for that. And the Trump administration is dismantling a $368 million deep ocean observation system that was put in place a decade ago because it monitors climate change. Better get rid of it. Internationally, there's always news. Protests exploded after Jared Kushner's luxury coastal resort project in Albania, didn't even realize they had one, came under investigation by the country's anti-corruption prosecutors. Guess what they found? Corruption.
You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
And hell, let's just add this as well. Mette Frederiksen starts her 3rd term as Danish Prime Minister thanks to her firm position on Greenland. I guess they're really enjoying that position in Denmark. And every once in a while, Trump still threatens Greenland, but he hasn't sent that hospital ship yet. Too bad about that. We'll see you tomorrow.